The day my mother said it, the room went quiet in a way that made my ears ring. The baby isn't his. She said softly, not accusing, not cruel, just certain. I remember the way the ceiling fan clicked overhead, one loose screw tapping like a nervous finger, and how I pressed my palm against my stomach as if I could protect the truth by holding it in place. I was 8 months pregnant then, heavy with hope. Married for 6 years, and standing in my childhood kitchen, staring at my mother like she'd just spoken a language I didn't understand. "What did you say?" I asked Dot. She didn't repeat herself. She just watched me with those same eyes she'd used my whole life, steady, tired, and far too knowing. The smell of boiled coffee lingered between us. Outside, a lawnmower droned somewhere down the block, ordinary life refusing to pause for my shock. "I'm telling you what I see," she finally said. "And what I feel." I laughed then. A thin, brittle sound that surprised even me. "Mama, that's not possible." She reached across the table and laid her hand over mine. Her skin was cool, her grip firm. "I know you want that to be true," she said, "but wanting doesn't make it so." I pulled my hand away. That moment would come back to me later, sharper than it was then. But at the time, I folded it up and tucked it somewhere deep. I was pregnant. I was married. I was supposed to be happy. And I had spent my whole life believing my mother was dramatic when she worried too much. Back then, my life still had a rhythm to it. I lived in a narrow, two-story house with beige siding and a porch that sagged just a little on the left. My husband, Marcus, had bought it a year after we married, proud as a peacock, even though the mortgage made him grumpy and the plumbing made us swear. Every morning, he left for work before sunrise, steel-toe boots by the door, coffee travel mug in hand. He worked at a distribution warehouse across town long hours, decent pay, always tired. I taught third grade at the elementary school 5 blocks away. Even pregnant, I walked when the weather was good. The kids had started noticing my belly. Before I said anything, whispering and giggling like I was hiding a balloon under my dress. When I finally told them, they clapped. And one little girl asked if she could name the baby Dot at night. Marcus and I ate dinner on the couch, plates balanced on our knees. He liked his food hot and his TV loud. I liked mine quiet, with my feet tucked under me. We compromised the way couples do, not perfectly, but often enough. When I told him I was pregnant, he stared at me for a full 10 seconds before smiling. A slow smile, a surprised one. "Really?" he said. I nodded, heart pounding. "Really?" He hugged me then, lifted me right off the floor, laughed into my hair. "I'm gonna be a dad," he said, like the words tasted good. I held on to that moment when my mother spoke her doubt. I held on to it like proof. My mother, Lillian, lived alone since my father passed. She had a way of seeing patterns before anyone else noticed the shapes. She'd predicted my cousin's divorce 2 years before it happened. She'd warned my sister about a business partner who later disappeared with half the money. But this was different. She had come over that afternoon because Marcus was working late, and I'd called her crying over nothing and everything. Pregnancy had made my emotions slippery. She brewed coffee without asking, just like always, and we sat at the kitchen table where I'd once done homework and spilled milk. She watched me as I talked, nodded at the right places. Then she asked, "When did you say you conceived?" I told her. She frowned, not dramatically, just enough to crease the skin between her brows. "And Marcus was home then?" "Yes," I said too quickly. "Of course." She didn't argue. She just looked at me like she was measuring something invisible. That's when she said it, after I left her house. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. I told myself she was wrong. I told myself she was old-fashioned, suspicious, too used to disappointment. I told myself pregnancy hormones had made me mishear her, but doubt is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It waits. Over the next few weeks, little moments began to feel heavier. Marcus worked later than usual. Sometimes he came home smelling like soap instead of sweat. He guarded his phone more closely, angling the screen away from me. When I asked how his day was, his answers shortened like he was conserving words. Still, he rubbed my feet at night. Still, he asked about doctor appointments. Still, he talked about names. Daniel, if it's a boy, he said once, tracing circles on my belly, after my uncle. I smiled, but something in me hesitated, like a step taken onto uncertain ground. I tried to talk to my mother again. I told her she'd scared me. I told her she was wrong. She listened. She always listened. I hope I am, she said quietly, more than anything. But if I'm not, she said, you need to be ready. I didn't want to be ready. I wanted to be sure. The baby kicked that night, hard enough to make me gasp. Marcus laughed, put his hand there, eyes wide with wonder. In that moment, watching him, I felt ashamed of my doubt, but somewhere deep inside, a small voice one that sounded an awful lot like my mother's refused to go quiet. And I didn't know how much that voice would cost me .*. The closer I got to my due date, the more the days seemed to stretch and thin like worn fabric. Everything felt fragile. Even joy. I began to notice time differently. I noticed how long Marcus stayed in the shower at night long enough for the mirror to fog and the water heater to complain. I noticed how he flinched when his phone buzzed on the coffee table, how he'd glance at it before turning it face down. I noticed how he kissed my cheek instead of my mouth when he left for work, quick and distracted. None of it was proof. It was all just texture, the kind you feel before you see. One afternoon, I came home early from school with swollen ankles and a headache that wouldn't settle. The house was quiet, sunlight slicing through the blinds in pale stripes across the living room carpet. Marcus's boots were by the door, which surprised me. He wasn't supposed to be home. I heard the shower running. At first, I felt relief, then confusion, then something closer to dread, though I couldn't have said why. I dropped my bag slowly, as if noise itself might break something. The shower stopped. I stood there, hand on my belly, listening to water drip, and the hum of the bathroom fan. Marcus came out wrapped in a towel. Hair damp, skin pink from the heat. Oh, he said, startled. You're home. Yeah, I said. They sent us early, fire drill and a substitute meltdown. He smiled faintly. Lucky kids. I watched his face while he spoke. I taught myself how to read children, how to tell when they were nervous or hiding something. Adults were harder. They had better masks. You okay? He asked, just tired, I said, which was true. It was just not the whole truth. He dressed quickly, moving with a stiffness I hadn't seen before, like he was aware of every inch of himself. When he left the room, I noticed his phone on the dresser, screen lit up for just a second before going dark. A name flashed across it. Not one I recognized. That night, I lay awake listening to him breathe. His arm was heavy across my ribs. I thought about asking him who she was, whoever she was, but the question felt too big, too final. Once asked, it couldn't be pulled back. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. The next morning, after Marcus left for work, I went through his jacket pockets. I told myself I was looking for a receipt, a pen, something innocent. My hands shook as I searched, guilt prickling my skin. I found nothing. No lipstick, no note, no secret second phone. Just a crumpled grocery list and a mint. I felt foolish, paranoid, pregnant. Apologized to the quiet house, but doubt doesn't need evidence to grow. It only needs space. At my next doctor's appointment, I sat on the paper-covered table while the nurse measured my belly and checked my blood pressure. The doctor smiled, said everything looked good. Strong heartbeat, she said, turning the monitor so I could hear it. The sound filled the room, fast, steady, alive. I cried. Relief poured out of me, hot and sudden. Whatever else was wrong, this baby was real. You have good support? The doctor asked gently. I nodded. My husband and my mother. She smiled. That helps. Asterisk, when I told my mother about the appointment, she listened, asked questions. Then she said, I want you to do something. What? Get a blood test, she said. A paternity one. Before the baby's born, if you can. I snapped then. Really snapped. That's insane, I said. I'm not accusing my husband of something like that. She didn't raise her voice. I'm not asking you to accuse. I'm asking you to protect yourself. From what? I demanded. From my own marriage? From lies, she said. Yours or his? I hung up on her. I cried until my chest hurt. I told myself she was poisoning my happiness. I told Marcus she'd upset me, though I didn't say how. He frowned. She always been like that, he said. Always suspicious. I nodded, though something in me recoiled at how easily he agreed. As my due date approached, Marcus grew more attentive. He packed the hospital bag early. He practiced installing the car seat 3 times. He talked about taking time off work, about teaching the baby to ride a bike. It's off to me. I began to feel silly for doubting him. The night my water broke, he was asleep beside me. I woke him with a shout. He sprang up instantly, wide-eyed, alert. Is it time? He asked. I nodded, laughing and crying all at once. The drive to the hospital was quiet. The streets were empty, streetlights glowing like small moons. Marcus held my hand at red lights, squeezed it like a promise. At the hospital, hours blurred together. Pain came in waves, deep and relentless. Nurses murmured encouragement. Machines beeped. Marcus stayed close, his face pale, his grip tight. When the baby finally arrived, screaming and slick and perfect, they laid her on my chest. A girl. I sobbed, overwhelmed. Marcus leaned in, eyes shining. She's beautiful, he whispered. I looked at her tiny face. Her dark hair plastered to her head, her eyes squeezed shut. Something twisted in my chest. She didn't look like him. I told myself it was nothing. Babies changed. Genetics were strange. My mother's words tried to rise, but I pushed them down. They handed Marcus the birth certificate clipboard. He hesitated just a moment before writing his name. I noticed I didn't say anything, but as I held my daughter for the first time, joy and fear braided together so tightly, I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. And somewhere in the quiet after the storm of birth, I realized the truth might not wait for me to be ready. Asterisk, they say new motherhood is a fog. A blur of sleepless nights and soft blankets, and learning the sound of a cry before it fully forms. For me, it was that, but it was also a sharpening. Every instinct felt louder. Every question heavier. We named her Naomi. Marcus chose the name, said it felt right. I agreed because I liked the way it sounded when I whispered it into her hair at night. Naomi, solid. Gentle. My mother came to the hospital the next morning. She stood at the foot of the bed, hands folded, eyes fixed on the bassinet. She didn't rush forward. She never did anything quickly when something mattered. She was beautiful, she said. I waited for something else. A look, a comment. She only smiled at me and brushed my hair back from my face. How are you feeling? She asked. Tired, I said. Happy. She nodded, as if accepting a partial truth. When she leaned over the bassinet, her face changed, not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. She studied Naomi's features with the quiet concentration of someone reading fine print. Marcus noticed too. She's got my nose, he said quickly, too quickly. Don't you think? My mother didn't argue. She just said she's got strong features. She'd grow into them. That was all. At home, Life settled into a rhythm shaped by feeding schedules and laundry and exhaustion. Marcus went back to work after a week. My mother came by every other day, cooked meals, folded clothes without asking. She never stayed too long. One afternoon, while I rocked Naomi in the living room, my mother sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. "You should look at her ears," she said quietly. I stiffened. "What about them?" "They're attached," she said. "Yours are free. Marcus's are free." I laughed, sharp and defensive. "Mama, stop. Babies aren't puzzles." She sighed. "I know how this sounds," then stopped saying it. She nodded, but I saw the worry settle deeper in her face. Like something choosing a place to stay. Marcus began to avoid being home when my mother visited. He claimed overtime, errands, sudden obligations. When he was around, he was careful, too careful. He held Naomi stiffly, like she might break. Sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking, he stared at her with a strange intensity, his jaw tight. One night, after Naomi finally fell asleep, I asked him, "Are you okay?" He didn't look up from the sink. "Just tired." "You've been tired a lot," I said. He turned, wiped his hands on a towel. "We just had a baby," he said. "Isn't that allowed?" I nodded. I wanted to believe him, but the air between us felt thinner, like it might tear if I pulled too hard. The first real crack came 3 weeks later. Was in the bedroom folding tiny onesies when Marcus came in, closed the door behind him. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. "We need to talk," he said. My stomach dropped. Naomi fussed softly in her bassinet. "Okay," I said. He rubbed his hands together over and over. "I need you to know something," he said, "before you hear it from someone else." My heart pounded. "Hear what?" "There's a woman at work," he said. "She's been saying things." The room seemed to tilt. "What kind of things?" I asked. "That Naomi isn't mine," he said. The words came out fast, like he wanted them gone. "She's been telling people that?" "Spreading rumors." I stared at him. "Why would she say that?" He hesitated. "Just a fraction of a second. She's bitter," he said. "We had a thing a while back, before you got pregnant." The words landed like a physical blow. "A thing," I repeated. "It didn't mean anything," he said quickly. "It was over before anything important. Before me." I asked. "No," he said. "No, it was after. But it was brief. A mistake." I stood up slowly. My legs felt unsteady. "You cheated on me," I said. He reached for me. I stepped back. "I was lonely," he said. "You were working late. You were tired all the time." "I was pregnant," I said. "I didn't know yet," he said. "I swear." And when I found out, I ended it. I thought of the dates, of my mother's question in the kitchen, of the timing. "And now she's saying the baby isn't yours," I said. "Why?" He looked down. Because she thinks it might be hers." The room went silent. Not Naomi cried then, a thin, insistent wail. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He swallowed. "She says the timing lines up." I laughed. "A broken sound. So you don't even know?" He looked at me, eyes wet. "I think she's mine," he said. "I want her to be." I felt something inside me give way, not shatter, just shift, like a door closing quietly. "My mother said she wasn't," I said. He looked up sharply. "What?" "She told me months ago," I said. "She said the baby wasn't yours." He stood pacing. "That's ridiculous. She doesn't know anything." "She knows more than you think," I said. He stopped, faced me. "Are you saying you cheated too?" "No," I said. "I'm saying I don't know what the truth is anymore." We stood there, the space between us filled with everything we hadn't said. "I want a test," I said finally. He nodded slowly. "Okay, But his face told me what his words wouldn't. He was afraid, and so was I asterisk. Waiting for the truth is its own kind of punishment. The paternity test appointment was scheduled for 2 weeks later. 2 weeks of watching Marcus move through the house like a guest. 2 weeks of my mother biting her tongue and my daughter sleeping peacefully, unaware that her very existence had become a question mark. Marcus agreed to the test without argument, but he changed in small, telling ways. He stopped making plans for the future. No more talk of first birthdays or preschool savings. He went quiet when people commented on how Naomi looked like him. He flinched when my mother held the baby too long. At night, I lay awake with Naomi tucked against my chest, breathing in her warm, milky scent. I studied her face in the dim light, her nose, her eyes, the curve of her mouth. I looked for myself. I looked for Marcus. I looked for something that could anchor me. The day of the test, my mother came with me. Marcus drove separately. The clinic was small, tucked between a dentist's office and a dry cleaner. The waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and old magazines. A muted television played a daytime talk show no one was watching. Marcus sat across from me, hands clasped, leg bouncing. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The nurse called us back one by one. Naomi cried when they swabbed her cheek, a sharp sound that pierced me straight through. I whispered apologies into her hair, though she couldn't understand them. When it was over, Marcus stood awkwardly by the door. Results in a week, the nurse said. A week felt like a lifetime. At home, the tension finally broke. I can't live like this, Marcus said that night. He stood in the kitchen, fists clenched. Your mother looking at me like I'm guilty of something. You barely talking to me. She's not wrong to look, I said quietly. He stared at me. You think I'm lying? I think you've already lied, I said. He ran a hand through his hair. I made a mistake. That doesn't make me a monster. It makes me not trust you, I said. Silence stretched between us. I'll leave, he said suddenly. Just until the results come back. I nodded. I didn't stop him. He packed a bag that night, moved with the efficiency of someone who'd rehearsed it. When he left, the house felt larger, emptier. Naomi stirred, then settled. My mother came over the next morning. She didn't say I told you so. She just made oatmeal and held Naomi while I showered. You did the right thing, she said later. I don't know what the right thing is anymore. I said, the truth is always the right thing, she said, even when it hurts. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting at the kitchen table, Naomi asleep in her swing, when my phone rang. Hello? I said, this is the clinic, a voice said. Your results are in. My heart raced. Okay, there's no easy way to say this, she said gently. Marcus is not the biological father. I closed my eyes. Thank you, I said. My voice sounded far away. I hung up and sat there for a long time. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Naomi snorted softly in her sleep. When my mother arrived, she took one look at my face and nodded. I'm sorry, she said. So am I said. Marcus came that evening. He stood on the porch, shoulders slumped, eyes red. You knew, he said. It wasn't a question. My mother suspected, I said. I didn't want to believe her. He laughed bitterly. Neither did I. She's not yours, I said. He nodded. I know. For a moment, we just stood there. So what now? He asked. I looked at Naomi through the doorway. Now I figure out how to be her mother without lying to myself. And me? He asked. I studied his face, the man I'd loved, the man who'd betrayed me, the man who'd just lost a child he thought was his. I don't know. I said honestly. He left without arguing. The truth didn't bring relief. It brought clarity. And clarity hurt. The woman from Marcus's work, her name was Alicia, reached out a week later. She wanted to talk. I agreed. We met at a cafe downtown. She was younger than me, nervous, eyes darting. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She said, but it did, I said. She nodded. She's mine, she said. Naomi. The word mine sounded wrong in her mouth. We'll see, I said. I hired a lawyer the next day, because motherhood. I was learning wasn't just about love, it was about protection. Asterisk, once lawyers enter a story. Everything becomes quieter and louder at the same time. Quieter because people stop speaking freely. Louder because every word suddenly carries weight. I hired a family attorney recommended by a colleague at school, an older woman named Denise with gray braids and a voice that never rushed. Her office smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. She listened without interrupting, took notes in careful, looping handwriting. So, she said when I finished, you're the biological mother. That part is clear, yes. And Marcus is not the father. Also clear, yes. And the other woman believes she is. She says so, I said. But I don't know if she's certain. Denise nodded. We'll need confirmation. Another test. What happens if she is? I asked. Denise met my eyes. Then things get complicated. That word complicated followed me home like a shadow. Alicia agreed to the test. She brought her own lawyer, a young man who spoke quickly and smiled too much. The second test confirmed it. Alicia was Naomi's biological mother. I remember sitting in the courthouse bathroom afterward, staring at my reflection under harsh fluorescent lights. I looked tired, older, like someone who had crossed a line and couldn't go back. How is that even possible? I asked my mother later, my voice breaking. I carried her. I gave birth to her. She held my face in her hands. IVF, she said softly. It happens. Mistakes happen. The clinic admitted it 2 weeks later. An embryo mix dash up. Someone else's egg. Someone else's future. Placed inside my body by accident. They apologized. They offered counseling. They offered compensation. None of it touched the thing that hurt. Naomi was mine in every way that mattered to me. But the law has its own ideas about what matters. Alicia filed for shared custody. Marcus stayed away. He sent a message once, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply. The first custody hearing was short and procedural. The judge was kind but distant, like someone who had learned not to absorb other people's pain. Temporary custody was granted to me. Visitation to Alicia. Supervised at first. The first time she came to my house, I watched her hold Naomi with hands that trembled. She cried quietly, over and over, whispering, I'm sorry. I wanted to hate her. It would have been easier, but she wasn't cruel. She was just human. Weeks passed. Then months. Naomi grew. She learned to smile, then to laugh, then to crawl. She reached for me when she was tired. She calmed when I sang to her. She knew my smell, my voice, my heartbeat. Every night I told her the same thing. You are loved, I whispered. You are safe. The final hearing came when Naomi was 10 months old. Denise stood beside me, calm and steady. Alicia sat across the room, eyes red, hands clenched. The judge listened. Asked questions. Read reports from child psychologists, medical experts, social workers. In the end, he looked at me. You are the child's gestational and primary caregiver, he said. You have provided stability, care, and emotional security. My heart pounded. However, he continued, the biological connection cannot be ignored. I closed my eyes. Shared custody, he said, with primary residence remaining with the gestational mother. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. Alicia sobbed. I cried too. Outside the courthouse. My mother hugged me tightly. She told the truth, she said softly. From the beginning. Yes, I said. She did. Life didn't return to normal after that. It found a new shape. I learned how to co-parent with a woman I never planned to know. I learned how to answer Naomi's questions when she was older slowly, honestly, with care. Marcus moved away. We divorced quietly, without drama. Some endings don't need shouting. Years later, my mother and I sat on the porch, watching Naomi ride her bike up and down the sidewalk. She looked back at us, grinning, fearless. You were right, I said to my mother. She nodded. But I wish I hadn't been. I watched my daughter, and felt something settle inside me. Truth doesn't always take away love. Sometimes it just asks us to redefine it.